Hello, my wonderful third period. You are watching this video because I am not physically with you. I am on a plane, as you guys know, so I'm recording this video so that you know everything you're supposed to do during the class period. And some of you are probably watching this early because you are eager beavers and you want to get it done early, and I love that about you. You're awesome. So, ladies and gentlemen, today is Wednesday, February 10th, and we are starting a new module. And I don't know if you can tell, but I'm very excited. We're going to be in the 1920s. So, I can't believe that we're in the 2020s because when people say the 20s, they're usually referring to this time period. But now it's confusing. So I don't know which 20s people will be referring to. But I still think of the 20s as the 1920s because I think this is an awesome time period. I think it's filled with so much wonderful information. I think it's a unique time period. It's in between World War I and World War II. The Great Depression has not happened. If you know about that topic, that hasn't happened yet, and the people living in the 20s do not know that that is going to happen. I don't know, it's just an exciting time period. There's good stuff, there's bad stuff, just like in everything we've studied in history. But I hope that you get to learn all of it, the good and the bad, the exciting and maybe the boring for some of you. But I love this time period. So, what is our agenda? Look at the box in pink. We're going to do an introduction into the 1920s, and then you will start your first assignment for the 1920s. You're going to want to finish this assignment for homework at least by tomorrow, February 11th at 11:59 p.m. Especially if you're watching this video early, I think you can get it done before that, obviously. But since I'm not going to be with you on Zoom, you can definitely finish this in the 90-minute time period on Wednesday. But I did want to point your attention to the bottom box right here, the essential question. So this is actually the essential question for all of Module 4. This is our main idea. This is what you will be answering at the end. So spoiler alert, this is your quiz right here. So at the end of Module 4, I'm going to ask you this same question. This is your quiz. How did America change socially, politically, and economically in the 1920s? We're looking at a 10-year time period after World War I. If you guys remember, we were involved in World War I for a year. It was a big deal, and it kind of scared us into isolation. So now we're kind of just focusing on America, and there's a lot of things happening in America, both socially amongst the people, politically in the government, and also economically. You're going to see that these three themes are going to pop up a lot. So your job is just to tell me what you've learned at the end of this module. How did America change socially, politically, and economically? Okay, the 1920s is a huge time period. There is so much information, like so much. Because of distance learning and the pandemic and all the things that we get to go through, I can't teach you all of it, but I'm teaching you some of my favorites. I hope that's okay. Again, you guys know I kind of have to pick and choose what I'm teaching right now. And so I'm trying to cover as much as I can without stressing you out. So here are some of my favorite topics that we're going to be learning about in the 1920s America. We're going to be studying Prohibition era, which is the time period where we weren't allowed to have alcohol in America. That's actually your first assignment you're going to be doing. We're going to be studying the Harlem Renaissance, which is just a fantastic time for Black Americans, specifically in Harlem, New York. But it just transforms and it goes everywhere in America, and you'll see. It's an awesome topic. Women's rights movement is big during this time period. This is when women finally get the right to vote and how that changes how women act. And then the last one is an economic theme that we definitely have to study, and it's the concept of consumerism. This is when we get like electrical devices like vacuum cleaners, refrigerators, things like that. It's when we get cars. And so this whole idea of like keeping up with what your neighbor has, that's starting. Advertisements are popping up for the first time, kind of trying to convince people what to buy. And people's wages are going up and they feel like they have so much money. So it's this time of superficial economic prosperity, which we will learn about, don't worry. Um, there's something I put on Canvas that is a little intro. I think it's called 4.1.0, Introduction in the 1920s. I just want to read it here, and I'm also going to give you the link to this YouTube video because I think it does a good summary of what we're going to be learning about. So, the Roaring Twenties was a period in history of dramatic social and political change. For the first time, more Americans lived in cities than on farms. The nation's total wealth more than doubled between 1920 and 1929, and this economic growth swept many Americans into an affluent but unfamiliar consumer society. People from coast to coast bought the same goods thanks to nationwide advertising and the spread of chain stores. They listened to the same music, they did some of the same dances, and they even used some of the same slang. Ain't that the bee's knees? That's 20s slang. Many Americans were uncomfortable with this new urban, sometimes racy mass culture. In fact, for many, even most people in the United States, the 1920s brought more conflict than celebration. However, for a small handful of young people in the nation's big cities, the 1920s were roaring indeed. So, again, you might have heard of this phrase, the roaring 20s. It kind of means the exciting 20s. There is a lot of partying, there is a lot of excitement going on, and you'll see that as what we talk about. So, what is your first assignment? What is your first dip into the 1920s? Well, we got to talk about Prohibition because this only lasts in the 20s. Obviously, you guys know in America we can buy alcohol, we can drink alcohol, we have laws that everyone's supposed to follow regarding alcohol. But this is a very unique time in our country's history where we thought alcohol was a huge problem and we thought the solution was to just completely get rid of it. So you're to see how well that worked or how it did not work. But I did put some key vocabulary that you need to know. I also put it in the assignment. I'll show you in a second. But you need to know what the word prohibition means. The time period in which America prohibited or did not allow the sale of manufacture or transportation of any alcohol. So look in prohibition, you should see the word prohibit. That means you can't do something. And specifically, we called this time period the Prohibition era because this was the time period where you you're prohibited from drinking alcohol. When something is ratified, that means you have approved something, in this case, an amendment. So, what made Prohibition a big deal? Well, there was an amendment, the 18th Amendment, that was put in the Constitution that literally said we can't drink alcohol. You're going to also see this word called temperance that has nothing to do with temper or anger. It literally means you're not drinking alcohol. You're going to see this word bootleggers. These guys are funny or fun, maybe not funny. They illegally sell alcohol. Now, why'd they get the name bootlegger? It's actually because some people literally hid alcohol in their big boots. Can you believe it? Like those big boots that you see people wear. Yeah, they tried to hide alcohol in those boots. And actually, a lot of women were bootleggers because they're wearing these big poofy dresses. Some of the women are. And in that big poofy dress, they can hide alcohol strapped to their body. But no one would know because that big poofy dress is covering it. So a lot of women were bootleggers. A lot of people went to speakeasies. Speakeasies. This is an illegal secret nightclub that is selling alcohol. And the reason it's called speak easy is because it means to speak softly, because it's a secret. So these were secret nightclubs that were underground, in basements, in attics, in a random warehouse. You had to do like a secret little knock. You had to do a certain password. Again, just because the Constitution says you can't drink alcohol doesn't mean Americans aren't going to find a way to do it. And then repealed. You need to know what that word means. It means to basically cancel out. So, spoiler alert, we will create an amendment that repeals the 18th Amendment. So, we will create an amendment that gets rid of the amendment that didn't let us drink alcohol. So, that's the end of the story. So, your assignment today. It is 4.1.1, Prohibition in the 1920s. All that key vocabulary I just talked about is at the top. You are to complete this assignment in formal writing. And if you click on that link, it will bring you to a Google Doc, and it's just reading and questions. But I think it's interesting reading and questions. I have you look at the actual amendment. I have you look at some pictures sometimes, another picture, and the end of the story. So everywhere you see like a little highlighted yellow is where you should be answering a question. So I don't know how many questions there are. I do not know. But there's not that many, but I want all of them done formally. Formal does not mean long. It could still be one sentence, but formal means you restate the question. You're doing it in high vocabulary. You're checking your spelling, your grammar. It's a complete sentence. So yeah, it does not mean it has to be lengthy. It just has to be a complete answer. So, ladies and gentlemen, that is the beginning of the 1920s. I will see you on Friday, and I hope you guys just have an awesome time with this assignment. Okay? Bye.